You're on this momentum wave in your business. New clients are finding you and signing with you. You're making money more easily than you've ever made it before. It feels like you've finally cracked it. Everything's working. And then something happens. You get a rejection or a launch flops or some fear just starts to arise out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, your stomach drops and you feel like, oh my God, it's not working. I don't have that magic touch anymore. Well, that happened to me anyway, and it didn't just go away after a week. It lasted for about 18 months. So instead of my income continuing to go up as it had the last couple of years, it dropped 80K instead. And I really thought by the end of it that I may have to move back in with my parents. Before this confidence wobble, things were working out for me and I was having success like I never had before. And honestly, energetically, I felt kind of untouchable. Not in an arrogant way, but just like, wow, I haven't felt like I'm struggling or stressed or having any issues with anything for a long time. Everything just feels pretty awesome. And I gotta tell you, I had really struggled before that in business for quite a few years, battling this sense of feeling unworthy, not belonging, and also my life could just never be that good. Things could just never work out well for me. And because I had these beliefs, I just had such a hard time actually putting myself out there consistently and making offers consistently. But I managed to finally get through all that ego shit, build my business to 6 figures, have the stability in my business to be able to move to Bali, and then within 6 months of moving to Bali, be able to go on a 4-month round the world trip to 3 different continents and fly business class over to Europe, paying full price for that flight. It was so good. Things that I had wanted for so long were finally happening, and I was booked out with one-to-one clients until I left for that overseas trip, because all of this success and ease that I was having in my life was a major trigger to my ego. This was outside of my ego's reality of how life worked for me and the conditions that I needed to have in order to be safe, which is to definitely not be visible being myself. It's your ego's job to ensure survival. And so what your ego does is it's constantly scanning for threats like a radar, scanning what might be a threat to my safety and existence. So a really common thing that happens for a lot of people when they do start generating success, especially when they're being fully themselves and it's their true path, their purpose, their authenticity, is that their ego starts perceiving that that's really unsafe and starts slipping in to sabotage that. For me, my ego started to look out for threats, and it started to look out for proof that people didn't want to work with me and that I couldn't sustain this and I would need to go back home to Australia and hide away on the farm where I grew up. So here I was, taking a business class flight over to Europe, landing in my beautiful Airbnb that I booked for a month in Portugal, and my ego's going, oh my God, this is really not okay. We're not going to be okay. I was running a live course at the time and I was running live calls for the course, and I could feel it. Already, I was starting to feel bad about this course. There was nothing wrong. This was a course I had run many times before, but my ego started to feel like people don't like this, people don't want this, everyone can see that I'm a fake and a fraud, and that wobbling confidence just started to come on. And then this happened. At the end of this course, I decided to offer another mastermind. I had one group already running, and I wanted to see if I could get a second group running at the same time, because I thought I'd built up enough energy and momentum in my business, and the next step would be to have 2 masterminds running at the same time. So I pitched the mastermind at the end of the course, already with this slight wobble in my confidence. Now, the last time I ran this course about a year ago, I pitched a mastermind off the back of it, and it was the first time I was running this version of a mastermind. I had 9 women sign up and I was overjoyed. So I pitched it, and over the next few weeks before it was meant to start, I had 1 woman sign up. Now, my brain took this as a sign that nobody wanted my work, and I was so bad and terrible and horrible for offering it, and now everyone was seeing and no one was interested. Almost like the sensation that I'm some kind of bad smell. Even though I had so much evidence to the contrary, I was running a mastermind group that was going great. I had one-to-one clients, but my ego completely blew this out of proportion and made it mean something it didn't mean. All it meant was, okay, there's not enough energy and momentum to have 2 masterminds running at once. Don't worry about it. Keep doing the next things you're doing. But I took it as a mortal offense and evidence that my business was dying, never going to work, and oh my God, what am I going to do? Now, because I structure my business in a very intentional way, I was sweet for income from my recurring revenue for the next 7 months. But I could not unhook from this fear that was making me feel like I fundamentally had no place in the world and nothing of my own that I would do would be received by the world. So I went into this contraction and this feeling of self-consciousness, fully gripped by this belief that no one was going to work with me again and that my business was going to die as a result, and anything that I put out, even marketing wise, was a horrible, shameful mess. But this was all just happening in my mind. And thus my confidence wobble came into full force. What's so interesting when you start feeling trapped in your limiting beliefs, it feels like you have no options. When your energy is flowing and you feel turned on, confident, untouchable, all you can see is exciting and different ways for things to come together. But when your confidence turns off, suddenly it feels like there's nothing. No one has money, no one's buying your offers, no one's powerful, everyone's struggling, everyone's a victim, because that's exactly how you're feeling. And from there, you can't see how you can connect with new audiences or clients, and you might even start to question if what you're offering has any value to it, or if you're just being really selfish by offering it and taking people's money in exchange. Despite the fact that I had a very expensive and very brilliant coach, I was stuck in this fear. As a result, everything that I was doing on that front end of my business wasn't connected to my energy, wasn't connected to my genius, so none of it was landing and none of it had any magnetism to it, because all of it was coming from my head and coming through this filter of my insecurities. My energy wasn't turned on. A couple of months after that mastermind pitch, I was in Africa and I was launching my next short course, and I was doing it in a different format, and it just seemed like no one cared and no one was interested. My last course launch had so much energy to it. I brought so many people into it. I was so turned on and in my energy. I went to a studio and I filmed the entire thing with pink makeup and sparkly outfits. I was vibing, but now I wasn't. So what I was creating wasn't really getting through to many people, and it felt like I lost it. Now, it wasn't that no one was signing up. I did have a few people that signed up for the course, but it felt like a push, and it really felt like I had to convince people. And I did start another mastermind after the other one finished, but I only had a few people sign up for it that had been following me for a while and knew for a while that they wanted to do it. Working with my existing clients was going well, but I was really struggling to attend to any marketing and my relationships with people that weren't already working with me. After about a year of this contraction and then natural slowdown of everything in my business, I reached a point that I could see if I didn't change something, my income would soon go below my expenses. And if this happened, I might even have to leave Bali. But from the state of mind that I was in, I just couldn't see what I could do to change this on a practical level. I was trying all of the things, but I couldn't seem to get turned on and stay turned on. So I sat down and got real. My work was all about giving women the power to live their true nature and purpose, overcome any part of themselves and their consciousness that tells them that they're powerless, and learn how to claim the power in their lives to create the outcomes they want. And here I was having the ultimate struggle with my ego, the very thing that I helped people with all the time. So I went, right, what do I know is true about consciousness, creation, energy flow, and the nervous system? Because that's the problem here. My energy keeps shutting down. My coach is giving me really great insight, but it's not actually shifting things in my nervous system so that my energy is really back on. I keep predominantly being gripped by this contraction. I went, okay, I know that we create it all. Whatever is happening in our reality, we're creating it, which means that I am creating this, which means there's a part of me that wants this, and that part of me is getting the power. And so why don't we let ourselves create the things that we actually want? It's because there's something that we're not willing to feel that we perceive will come along with that. Okay, so what haven't I been willing to feel? And I kept going down through this process. And what else fragments us from our energy being turned on and being wide open with our aliveness? Rejecting anything. And what restores wholeness and turned on energy flow? Feeling it all, pleasure, igniting your eros, and composting your fear. I threw out any processes I'd learned, and I created my own set of practices that more deeply addressed the areas that I was getting stuck on, which was predominantly being overwhelmed by my emotions, overwhelmed by this sense of fear, overwhelmed by the contraction. Immediately after doing this, my energy turned back on. And what this also created for me was a way to sit down and face it anytime I was triggered into contraction. And I made a promise to myself in that moment that this year, as I create, anytime I start to feel that twinge of contraction, shame, guilt, fear, I am going to sit down and face it until it actually clears and my energy turns back on and is flowing. I'm not going to limp along taking action while I'm still in contraction. Once my energy turned back on, it was like I could see again. Where I had been seeing for so long, no options to move forward, grow, expand, continue my business, I could see crystal clearly my next steps. I knew that what I was creating was going to be magnetic. And that's why if you're in this state of contraction and feeling like there's no options, scrambling for another strategy is never the answer. If you're contracted or feeling powerless, you can't see the way ahead, which suddenly becomes visible and obvious when you turn your energy back on, when you shift your consciousness. Because the truth is, for that whole 18 months of my confidence wobble, I was using intuitive processes for my next steps, for what to do in my business, for what to create. But because my energy was turned off and I was in such a survival state, I couldn't actually access it very powerfully. My energy wasn't flowing. And that's what I learned. The number one thing is your energy being turned on and flowing, because that plugs you in. That plugs you into your greatness, that plugs you into your genius, that plugs you into your energy and your intuition. And when you try to use intuitive practices and operate from your intuition from feeling fundamentally contracted, you're not going to get a whole lot out of it. At this point, I was supplementing some of my income with my savings. And once I made this shift, I could see clearly again. The breadcrumbs were in front of me and I was ready to get on my knees and eat those breadcrumbs. I went full power doing that. Literally, it was like a switch turned back on again. I launched a new course, which was so much more me and my unique wisdom than anything I'd ever created. And while that made me a little bit of money, I knew what was actually going to build my income and secure my income again would be getting a more structured mastermind going again. And I could have tried to launch a mastermind again off the back of that course, but I could just feel I haven't generated enough energy yet. If I launch it now, it's going to flop. What I need to do is another short course that covers this area first. And so while in a way that was delaying building up more security in my income, I knew that's what I actually needed to do to build the security in my income. And I just had to bide my time, follow the steps to build up the energy again, and my income would follow. So that's what I did. And when I did launch a mastermind again, I did a restructure of it. I made it even more me, even more my teachings. And so this has become the best mastermind that I've ever run. And the work that I'm doing with clients now is so much more effective because of the practices and processes I've developed, really optimized for women to work with the emotion, the nervous system, pleasure, and eros. And bit by bit, as a byproduct, my monthly revenue started to build back up again. I built my way out of that income dip, which I know for so many women can be the end of it for their business. You just have to learn how to turn your energy back on again so that you're creating again. What I hope you take away from this video is firstly that our psychology is complex and you have an ego that's constantly on the lookout to figure out what's wrong, even when everything's going right. And then when that catches on, that will convince you that things are not right. And then you will usually spiral in a way that manifests those very fears. And the second thing I really hope you take away from this is that if that happens, there's nothing wrong with you. You're human. you have an ego. If you want to continue to grow and expand in all these wonderful ways past your comfort zone, past your limiting beliefs, then you just need to learn how to master your consciousness. Even if you've eroded all of your self-trust. I've been there before, and I honestly never thought that I would earn 6 figures because of it. And I've earned 6 figures for the last 4 years consecutively. If you want to learn some of my processes, you can find them in my book, Be Unacceptable. I put the link in the description. If you're still here, there's something I know about you. You are here for big things. Don't let your mind trick you into doubting it.